Hi, welcome to Joyous Earth's first Facebook Live. We are talking today to the amazing Lyndall, and she is an animal naturopath, which you probably read in the description. Lyndall, g'day. Welcome to Joyous Earth. Can I first get you to introduce yourself? What's your favourite thing about what you do? What do you do? Yeah.
Sure. So, my name's Lyndall Pinchin. My business is Canine Vitality, and I've been in the naturopathic industry for about 30 years, and I've worked with dogs over the last 8 years. My favourite thing about what I do is that I get to work with dogs every day. Who wouldn't love that? So I have a real passion for animals. That's always, since I was a little girl, and very, very passionate about educating people around the benefits of natural medicines and how they can use that to really improve their animals' lives. I do work with cats as well, but I predominantly do see dogs. And I love what I do. I'm very fortunate to be able to, share this work with dog owners and their doggies. So yeah, it's great fun.
So today we're going to really focus on stress. Why do you think dogs focusing on stress first? Why is that such an important issue? Do dogs get stressed?
Yeah, Kelly, look, it's an interesting question, and I think it's a really good place to start because when you and I were discussing this, in my mind I was sort of thinking nutrition was the best place to start, but actually stress is really crucial because it does underlie all issues that I see. And as dog owners, I don't think we like to admit that our dogs are stressed, because what that says about us in our minds is that we're neglectful of our dogs. And nothing could be further from the truth. Most of us come from a place of love with our pets, and we believe we're doing the right things. But a lot of the things that we are doing with our dogs in particular, unknowingly, we are creating a lot of stress. We put a lot of human expectations on an animal that is a dog, so it's a different species. And dogs live in the wild, they live differently to us, so they don't have quite the same, then we've brought them into our domestic lives. So it's an adjustment for them. And we do see a lot of dogs. I would say 95% of the dogs I see have got some sort of an anxiety, stress type of an issue going on. And
that's most of the time, that's massive.
It's huge.
That's a huge.
It's huge.
That surprises me.
It really. Yeah. And I think, because most of the time when I say that to clients, will say, oh, no, my doggy's not anxious. But when we break it down, we go, well, hang on a minute, you're doing this and you're doing that. And they're going, oh, I had no idea. So for me, it's about.
Sorry? Can you break it down? What are some of the things that people need to look at when, what are the indicators of stress, the first one, so people can maybe see at the start before it gets bad?
Yeah. I mean, there's the really obvious ones that we see with rescue dogs, that, the dog that's left in the backyard and neglected. So that, I think all your listeners will understand that creates stress. And I do see a lot of those dogs as well, which is very sad. But just from more of a general perspective for those people who just love their dogs, the biggest thing for people is and I'm guilty of it too. I don't do it anymore, but I used to do it all the time, is that thing where I call it over-loving. So we have our dog, and most of the time they're living inside with us all the time, probably sleeping on our bed or whatever, whatever you're comfortable with. And we tend to fuss over them. We talk to them all the time. We pet them. We pick them up. We hold them. We don't give them space. We don't give them respect. And what we have to remember is that dogs rely on us to keep them safe and protected. So imagine, for example, if you were sitting in your lounge room and you were sitting with somebody else in your family and they had the TV on really loud, blaring loud, and it was just giving you a headache, but the door was locked and you couldn't get out. So you just had to sit there for the next hour or 2 hours and just listen to this, this terribly, terribly loud TV that was giving you a headache. It's very similar to dogs. We put them in a position where sometimes they have no other choice. They've just got to sit with us and listen to the loud TV or the loud music, or we get into their space and we keep patting them and petting them and talking to them all the time, and it overwhelms them. And you will see dogs often.
for them, is it like,
No.
I know with different dogs, I've had like my dog now, Siren. She was bred to be she's a working dog. She likes being
Yeah.
inside and being near us, but she always stays a little bit. She likes to be near us, but she doesn't want to be on us.
Yeah.
Whereas my last dog was a Staffy, and her idea with stress was to not be next to me, even if it was a loud TV. Or so. How do I?
Yeah.
Sorry for interrupting you there. I was just sort of thinking about my different experiences.
Yeah, and you're right. Look, what the other thing to remember is that dogs, like people, are individuals. So, and they have personalities and they have emotions. And the interesting thing was, I recently spoke at a symposium we had running here in Brisbane, and we had an international speaker out who deals a lot with dog behaviour from a holistic perspective. And she said, remember that dogs feel the same in the way that humans do. So they feel jealousy, they feel anger, they feel sadness. So of course they're individual, and certain dogs have, every dog has a certain personality, just like you and I have different personalities. So there are going to be dogs that will be more able to cope with that over loving that you were saying, like your Staffy, whereas your Bull Arab, very much like a dog that I've got at the moment, tends to want space, just wants to be away from, doesn't want to be touched when it doesn't want to be touched. So I think that it is about learning to read your dog, learning to understand the different personalities. And I suppose we haven't got time to go into that today. It's a long conversation, but there are definitely personality types that will be a little bit more open to being, closer to you than other dogs. But also, what we do teach here in clinic, and the work that I've adopted with Jenny, who I work alongside with, is that it really is all about offering your dog a choice. So giving them a choice whether they want to be inside or outside, having a choice of whether they want to play or not play, whether they want to come to you or not come to you. So really, if your listeners think about the things that they do with their dogs on a day-to-day basis, and do they actually offer that dog a choice, or do they always expect the dog to do exactly what they say? So choice and respect are two really big ways that we can use.
Sorry.
Yeah, so choice and respect, I suppose, are ways that we can help reduce stress. The other thing, of course, then comes down to the physical, so diet, chemicals, medications, all those sorts of physical factors that have a negative impact on the immune system, on the internal environment, and how that damages the body, but how that creates stress and anxiety through just poor nutrition and imbalances of nutrients and all that sort of thing. So that is the other side of it.
Is it because, say, I know if I'm eating a really poor diet, just got a headache, like just in the background headache, I just don't feel well all the time, and so my stress levels are closer to the top, so I handle less. The kids be shouting at each other or something, and I'll just whereas if I've been eating a really good diet, I'm like, oh, you're shouting, let's get outside and go and do something, like that difference I notice with my diet. So animals are the same, is basically what you're getting at. Hey.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a thing called the gut-brain connection, and some of your listeners might have heard about that. It's well known for humans, but it's the same for dogs. So what we eat affects how we feel, and it's, once again, I can't go into all that detail, but basically it means that when you're offering dogs,
diet,
yeah, we are. Yeah, but when we feed our dogs the wrong type of foods, or we put chemicals into their body, it affects the brain chemistry, and it actually does increase symptoms like anxiety. So it's a physical influence that we can change very easily. We can actually eliminate that from their environment, and bring in better choices for them in terms of better foods and those sorts of things, which we will talk about later in the series. And that has a really negative or positive impact depending on what you do. So absolutely, very similar to the way that we are affected by diet and nutrition and chemicals and all that sort of thing. So
the other thing is environmental. So I suppose the elephant in the room with that for me, especially being in Australia with huge storm seasons, and a lot of people have working dogs. I find it mostly at influenced by, say, storms and stuff like that. You know when there's a storm coming, if you've got a certain kind of dog who's susceptible to it, like they'll know 24 hours beforehand that there's a storm coming. And a lot of people's dogs will jump fences and 6-7 foot fences, stuff like that, break through doors just to run. So that's a massive stress. Have you got, what are your suggestions about handling something as specific as that?
Yeah, so when you've got a specific stressor, which is that event like the storm or the fire, fireworks will be coming back into Christmas before we know it, and it'll be fireworks season. So those things are significant factors. Around that time of the year, I am getting constant inquiries about that, of storm phobia and noise phobia. Now, what I generally do for that is work with using herbs and homeopathic remedies. We do actually have a really good homeopathic remedy that is a combination remedy we use for that. There is a homeopathic called phosphorus 30C. That's 30C is the potency, but phosphorus is the mineral in a homeopathic form, and that works very well for storm related phobias and that sort of thing. And that can be given during a storm, or just as you say, that when you see your dog sensing a storm, or when you see the clouds rolling over and the storm's about to hit, you can start using that remedy. But other things that you can be doing, it's important for anything like that usually the first thing that happens in those events, and I'm guilty of this as well, is that we see our dog starting to get a bit stressed, or we realise that something's about to happen and we get really stressed and we panic, and we we start to go into that place ourselves. And dogs straight away, they pick up on that fear, that emotion, that stress, whatever it is, and that just makes them worse. So it's important that we stay calm. It's important that we stay calm for ourselves and for our dogs, to just try and use, keep the environment calm. So sometimes I'll recommend burning some nice gentle oils. There are a whole range of essential oils that you can burn. Lavender's, an obvious one, but I tend to use blends. I use either Young Living or doTERRA oils for that, which are very high grade. And just burning a few drops in a diffuser is a really good way to keep the whole family calm. You can, there are people that will play calming music and things like that. You can even download off the internet. You can get storm music, which is specifically, it's just recorded at a frequency that will keep a dog calm as much as possible. And then there are the thunder shirts, which some of your listeners might know about. There are a shirt that you wrap around the dog's body, and it works on acupressure points to calm the dog down. So it's a bit like a security blanket. Yeah. So there are a few things.
Physical therapist, so I've done a lot with working on specific acupressure points and stuff, just to help them distribute the energy that gets caught and vibrates through their head and causes that. So I've noticed that, and pulse pointed or acupressure pointed essential oils in those specific spots to help them flow the chi through their body differently. Yeah.
And you're right there. There's all this head energy that's going on for them, and if you can help to dissipate some of that and flow it through the body and out, that's going to be helpful as well. So there's a few ways that you can address that, and we find that the homeopathics work really well for that, just because they are also an energy remedy as well. So they're working on that level. But there are a few dogs that just don't respond to anything. They're just very severely affected. But for the majority of dogs, we get really good results with those sorts of issues, as long as the owner just follows the protocol there. So, yeah.
Okay.
So the big problem
with stress, because I realise that we've spoken about one particular one, but the stresses can be things like new child in the place, new dog, moving. There's so many different ones. So I know that you make your own remedies up, just to give people a bit of an idea of what they can get from you, what's out there. So you have specific ones for stress to help dogs. When you're giving a dog a naturopathic remedy, what's the process? Like, how do they, how do they give it? What's the value? What do you work on the internal organs, or how does it? Can you give me a rundown of that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so generally, if generally in clinic, I'll be, I will have someone who will come in for a consultation, and we'll go through a full history, and we'll just work out where I know, where I need to, start balancing the body. In terms of stress, it's, as you say, there are many, many reasons why dogs are stressed. They're stressed for, the emotional reasons, there's stress for physical reasons, there's pain, there's all sorts of factors that come in there. So I need to identify those. But as a general rule, then what I'm going to be targeting, because I see common themes all the time with dogs, and the two biggest areas, of course, that need to be addressed in terms of the internal environment are the adrenal glands, which are those glands that help us cope with stress. For the dogs, it's the same. It's what's called fight or flight, which most of your listeners would have heard of, that fight or flight protective mechanism. Like, do you fight the tiger or do you run away and hide? That is a protective mechanism for all mammals. And then the nervous system as well. So it's important to strengthen up the nervous system. Now, in some dogs, I need to strengthen the nervous system. In some dogs, I need to actually calm it down because it's overactive. Most of the time, the nervous system is very depleted, so because it's been an ongoing issue. So I need to actually use herbs to nourish the nervous system. So I might use herbs along the lines of oats or chamomile or skullcap or verbaine's another one I use regularly to just really nourish the nervous system. Oats is particularly nourishing for a really depleted nervous system that's gone through a long-term stress for whatever reason. Might be physical, might be emotional, might be post-surgery, might be post-injury, anything like that. Then it's really, really crucial to try and get those stress hormones down. So cortisol is one of the stress hormones that's produced in high quantities when there's an acute stress episode. But what we see these days is,
isn't it?
Sorry, what was that?
Cortisol is produced from the adrenal glands, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. So adrenaline, cortisol, there are others, but they're the two big ones. But what happens with these dogs that are chronically stressed is that cortisol is released into the bloodstream and it does its job. And normally it should just come back down into a normal range. But what's happening is cortisol is staying elevated in these dogs long term, and it's damaging the immune system. It actually depletes the immune system and causes all sorts of other problems, from gut issues to muscle wastage to low energy to all sorts of problems. So it's really crucial to start to try and get cortisol levels down, and that's why I'm using herbs that are known as adaptogenic herbs to try and get those levels down and to nourish the adrenal system. So I have a blend called Stress Anxiety. It's one of my best-selling products because I'm seeing so many stressed dogs, I suppose. And that's a combination of adrenal herbs, which are those adaptogenics, and those nervine herbs to really nourish. And
adaptogenics means that it can balance either. Is that?
Yes, that's right. It helps. Yes, adaptogenic just means to adapt to any stress. So whether it's a physical stress, emotional, to bring balance either way, as you say. So one of the herbs I use in there is a herb called withania, which as a woman, most women, a lot of women who have heard of herbs have probably heard of that one because it's one that is very good for us as women. But it does have a very strong nourishing effect on the adrenal and can bring an adrenal gland up or down depending on what the problem is. So that is always in my mixture. It's a combination of about 6 different herbs, and I also love to use flower essences in there because that's going to work on those emotional patterns to just gently bring those out as well. And that one is, that can be used for a whole range of things. I prescribe that for dogs that are overexcited, dogs that just can't settle, dogs that are very flighty or have separation anxiety, dogs that are reactive, dogs that are excessively barking or obsessive patterns, dogs that are in a situation.
Sourdough bread?
Sorry,
no?
What was that?
Have you got a remedy for dogs that steal my sourdough bread?
Yeah, if I work that one out, I'll be giving it to my Labrador. So,
just to let all of you know what I'm talking about, I've got a beautiful big bull Arab, and she's very massive and she's very, very smart. She opens up my kitchen cupboard when she smells that I've bought sourdough bread, and she gets it, even if it's on the top shelf. Don't know how. Steals it and eats it. So she's not allowed in my house at the moment. Hence that little inside joke there. Anyway, sorry, Lyndall.
I have at home with mine. So Yeah, but look, it's one of those formulas that I'm really happy to sell as a retail product because I've tested it for a number of years. I know I get consistency with that, and it works across a broad range of stress issues. So
Do
that's
you have
a
one
really
for humans and dogs? Like, so if I know a lot of the times that when the dogs are stressed, the humans stressed as well. Like they mirror each other, whichever one started it, or they're both going through the same stuff. So are you specifically just for dogs, or can, say, if I wanted to go on there and get, and I know with a lot of my clients, stress is the biggest issue. This blend that you're just saying is the one that I sell the most as well, but for humans. So do you have that? Can they get that
well,
from you?
actually, yeah, that's an interesting point because actually all my formulas, with the exception of my heartworm and flea and tick drops, which are obviously not human-based, all my formulas are human formulas that I've actually just modified down in doses. So a lot of the time, you're absolutely right. I see this mirroring pattern all the time, not just with stress, but with a whole range of issues that I'm treating, from gut problems to joint problems to immune issues. And quite often, I will actually say to the client, look, I want to put your dog on this mixture, but I want you to take it as well. And I'm going to give you the human adult dose, and I'm going to give you a doggy dose because that's quite different. And yes, they'll be taking the same mixture in conjunction. Or occasionally I might make something a little bit more specific for them. But yes, my herbs are all human grade, human formulas that I've adapted down to a dog or a cat dose. So absolutely, you can use them, even down to my herbal wormer. You can also use that for humans too. So they're all adaptable to humans or animals. Yeah.
Very cool. So some of the questions that I've been getting through the week about before I get to the questions, what is your what are some of the questions that you get asked, but also what's the things that you don't get asked that people should be asking? Do you know what I mean by that? Like, because you see this all the time. So what are the things that people aren't thinking about when they come in, but you wish that everybody knew?
Yeah, well, one of the biggest things which your listeners might find interesting, which does definitely relate to stress, is that the statistics now are showing, and this is probably cutting edge research. This is not probably general research you're going to be able to find, on the internet. This is more specific research that's showing that 85% of dogs are in pain. Now, that might be from poor fitting collars, halties, harnesses, that type of thing. It may be from doing a lot of jumping, running, that sort of thing, where they're getting sore muscles and the owners are unaware. Now, pain is a very significant stress contributing factor to stress. So a lot of the time people are just absolutely unaware that their dog's in pain, and that's the first thing not just the first thing, it's one of the first things I check when a dog comes into my clinic room and they're a new client. I will actually just do a quick pain. I will actually do just a check down their spine to see if there are areas. Now, your listeners can do this at home. All they need to do is just with their thumb and forefinger, just start from the neck. Make sure there's no collar or halter or anything like that on the dog, so the dog's just standing freely, and just very gently put pressure on either side of the spine as you work down from the neck down through to the shoulders, the middle of the back, down to the lower back and to the hips. Now, what you're going to see is if the dog's experiencing some pain in any part of in the spine, they're going to have muscle twitching, or the muscles might actually jump. If they're significantly sore, they're going to turn around and give you a little bit of a stare and say, back off because I'm sore. The other thing that you might see is that the dog, particularly in the lower back area, if you put pressure, the dog may go to sit down because there's some weakness there. So that's a little quick test you can do to see if there's sort of general tightness in the muscles or a little bit of soreness or anything like that. More in depth, you'd have to come and probably see me or see a chiropractor or somebody like that. But pain is a big thing.
So what do they do, like if it's just a basic? I know because I massage my dog all the time, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
do you have I know what I do, but as a remedial therapist, but do you have a specific thing that you do? Like, say, if they do find that, just above the hips, an inch or two above the hips along the spine, that they get that little, I'm just thinking we're siren sore at the moment, she'll get that twitch that comes back up. So do you use a specific oil, or do you just massage it? Anything, Epsom salts? What kind of stuff do you use?
So you can. There's a number of things you can do. In terms of essential oils, the way that we work in clinic with essential oils is we actually allow the dog to test that oil themselves by actually putting the oil on the ground and leaving the lid off and seeing if they come to that oil. So we actually don't put the oil to them, that we allow them to come to the oil. So, but there are a number of oils that are good for pain, such as birch, peppermint, wintergreen. There's a whole range of essential oils that are good. I like to use magnesium a lot, so I tend to use practitioner-only magnesium products, but there are other magnesium products you can use, because magnesium is deficient in most dogs as it is in most humans.
So do you find I would generally have to worry, because if they're licking that off and they're taking it internally, I know that's good. There's two schools of thoughts with magnesium internally, bad and good. If they're going to be injecting a little bit, so would you suggest that I would think that they would have to make sure they're not putting a whole bottle on?
Yeah. So I actually tend to use an internal powder, but for those people who might be using the transdermal spray, which is the one you actually rub on the skin, you're only going to be using a small amount, and usually just in one small area just to start with, like almost patch testing that area, because the oil that you rub on can sometimes irritate the skin of the dog, as it can with humans. It can make you a bit itchy sometimes. But generally speaking, I find that dogs tolerate magnesium incredibly well, and they do well on it. But I am more of the school of taking it internally, because I know I can get a pretty quick result that way as well. And then from then I will tend to refer out. I don't do any body work, so I will refer. We have a massage therapist who comes into our clinic, so I'll refer to her, or an animal chiropractor, or Bowen therapist, or somebody who's going to be able to, or acupuncture. Somebody's going to be able to do that body work that I don't do. So, and working also potentially with maybe a homeopathic, like St. John's wort, hypericum, or just depends on what the issue is there. So.
Okay. So pain is the big thing. Anything else that specific to stress that people can be looking for?
Well, something that people can do that's really, really helpful for stress, and we talked a little while ago about those cortisol levels, which are very, it's very important that we get those levels back down, because we're damaging the body long term if we don't. So one of the easiest things that you can do, now most of your listeners are probably keen dog walkers. If they're anything like me, they love to take their doggy for a walk. And for many, many, many years, I just used to take my dog out on the lead and do a really quick walk and try and drag the dog along with me. Come on, we've got to keep walking, we've got to go really fast. What I've learned in the last 5 years, in terms of looking at that a little differently, is that dogs actually don't like to walk really fast. What they do like to do is go out for a slow walk and use their nose to sniff everything, because the nose is how a dog sees its world. We see through our eyes, and while dogs do use their eyes to see their world, it's the nose that gives them all the information that they need, and they have an incredible nose, as you all know. So it's really important to allow them, when we're out walking, to stop and sniff. And this is one of the easiest ways you can get that cortisol down, because as you are allowing them to sniff, you're releasing endorphins, and that actually pushes cortisol down. So a lot of the time people are unaware of that, but that's a really easy thing to start to do. Just start to allow your dog a really good sniffing walk. And you might only walk for 20 minutes.
Too, isn't it? Because I know when I walk massive, I don't really, maybe on the way home I'll let her stop and sniff, but I'm still training her though. But I don't often, and I often come back stressed from a walk with her because she's massive. But I can imagine if I just chill out a little bit and we just relax and get to know our surroundings and not have to be anywhere and do anything, I would probably chill out a lot more as well. Isn't that so simple? believe I didn't get
It
that.
is. It's very easy. I think we have a thing that we have to sort of behave a certain way and do certain things with our dogs. But if we just come back into the moment with it and just think of them in the wild. In the wild, dogs are pack animals, but in the wild they don't do a great deal. They hunt, then they sleep for long periods of time. They do have play, and then they eat, and that's about it. They're very quiet. They don't, it's a very peaceful environment when they're in the pack. They're not barking at each other all the time and chatting away. So it is about just remembering that a dog is a dog and that they're not humans, and that if we allow them to do the things that come naturally to them, they're going to be happier and less stressed, and we are going to be happier and less stressed because of that as well. So sniffing is an excellent tool that you can use to just easily, it takes time, but it does bring down cortisol levels. So yeah.
I like that. Okay, so a question I had was from one of my viewers in Brizzy, which again, we sort of talked about it, but it was about her Staffy going through 2 doors, breaking doors off the hinges, jumping over a 6-foot fence, and then running and nobody being able to find him for 2 days or so, every single time there's a storm. So I know that we've talked about that and that you've got those specific things. So, but if she maybe had him on the adrenal blend, so it's just going to bring him down, so she's got a good place to work with instead of that already heightened.
Exactly.
Would that be something? Is there anything that that you recommend that people can do at home? So one, it'd be awesome to go and see you or someone like you, obviously, to get the herbs and stuff like that and get those remedies. But is there things that they can do? I don't know. I suppose we've already talked about it, haven't we? But any other tips on that?
Yeah, I think, just general tips is, get the diet right, reduce the chemical load from the physical perspective, and sort that side of it out. But the other thing is, like even what you could do, I'm not quite sure of what sort of what size yard this lady has, or wherever her dog, if she's got a backyard or an acreage or whatever. But using that sniffing technique to just generally, because if the dog's reactive in that sense of the storms, you're going to find that there'll be heightened stress generally anyway. Yeah. So by starting to, another thing that she could do, and another thing that we do encourage our clients to do in terms of those dogs that are highly reactive, is to certainly do the sniffing walks, but also in their own yard, what you can actually do is it's a bit of a hide and seek sort of a game, but it is to encourage sniffing. So you can actually get some, we usually use some cooked chicken or dehydrated meats, or a healthy treat, obviously not something that's processed, and actually just hide it all around the backyard. I do this regularly with my own dog because one of my dogs, he just loves this game, and then just, obviously have the dog inside while you're doing this, and then just come back inside and let them smell your hands to get a smell of the scent, and then just actually let them out into the backyard, and they'll start to go and sniff to find all of these treats. And it's just a sniffing sort of a hide and seek type of a game. But what it does is it actually gives the dog a mental challenge, but it also really encourages that calming effect. So what you'll find is that once they've done this, and I can attest to how well this works for my own dog, is that once they've been out doing this sniffing game, they'll find all the treats and eat them all up, but they'll come back inside and they'll just chill. They'll be so relaxed because they've just, they're mentally stimulated, they're mentally fatigued, but they're also very calm because they're doing something that comes naturally to them in terms of keeping themselves calm. The other thing that's very helpful is, in terms of diet, and I know we will talk about this, is feeding raw bones, because feeding a bone is a very therapeutic way to vent stress, and it helps to release.
Would also help with them releasing that energy in their head, wouldn't it? So maybe bones pre or during the stormy, Yeah.
like maybe offering a bone, depending on, it's hard with storms knowing when they're coming, but, depending on how you feed, normally you could offer a bone earlier in the day or just prior. Just remembering that when a dog's stressed, it won't eat. So probably what you'd need to do is do it maybe earlier in the day, or if you know that storm seasons are coming. I mean, we recommend feeding bones regularly anyway, so hopefully the dog's getting that most days. So there's a few things, and definitely not fussing too much over the dog, trying to not engage when they're getting in your face and trying to get your attention all the time. That does encourage a lot of stress as well. So just ignoring the dog when they're trying to be right in your face and really trying to get your attention, and they'll be putting their paw up on you and doing all these sorts of things. There are the little ways that you can just help to break that patterning where you're constantly interacting with your dog. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, we've got to the half an hour mark. So just to let everyone know, underneath this, I'll put in your details, and it's on the event page too. But we're going to do this regularly. I haven't actually told you this. Next week I'm going to Australia Zoo with my 7-year-old Lyndall, so we might have to arrange it either the week after or another day next week, but I'll let everybody know. I only sort of found out yesterday. But we're going to do a series of the 5 of these, and the next one, let me just pull that up, is, what was that going to be on?
I think we were going to do nutrition. I think we were going to step into that, were we? I think that's probably the next place to go.
Yeah, I'm just going onto the events page. Okay, so we'll definitely do nutrition then.
Yeah. I know a lot of people are are always wanting to find out the best way to feed their dogs, and there's a whole lot of ways you can feed your dog, but, we want optimal health. So, yeah, it's important to get that balanced.
Okay, yeah, that's cool. And then we'll do the next one. Will be on ticks and fleas and things like that. So I'll put in links to Lyndall's website and Facebook so everybody can have a look. So they'll be in the description underneath this or wherever it is around the video. Any other last things before we go, Lyndall, that you would like to share?
I think it's just reiterating the biggest thing for me with stress is just that whole thing about respect and choice. We should be offering that to every animal, of course. It's not just dogs, but I'm a really big believer in animal welfare and animal rights as well. And I think bringing a dog into your life is a privilege. It's not just something that you do for the heck of it. And if we make good choices around bringing a dog into our life at the right time, when it is the right time for us, we're going to have happier dogs in the long term. And I think sometimes people make impulsive decisions to bring pets into their lives and they may not be thinking it through. So it's important to, I suppose, just remember that a dog deserves respect, a dog deserves choices, and let's just bring them into our families and treat them as such, and we will have happier pets because they're going to be less.
They take on our emotions too, don't they? So when we're constantly coming home and as much as dogs are for stress, and maybe that nice gentle walk can be a de-stressor for us, and rather than us using the dog as a sponge.
Absolutely. And there's some beautiful essences we can use for that as well, but also it is important to just remember that the way that we are is going to be the way our dogs will become. So when we're calm, our dogs will be calm. When we're stressed, they're going to be stressed. When we're angry, they're going to feel the anger. And, it's never the dog's fault. It's whatever is happening with us. So, if a dog bites somebody, it's generally because of what's been going on, with the owner in terms of how the dog has been raised. So it's important to remember that dogs can only just reflect what we are. So,
okay.
Yeah.
You are awesome. Thank you so much for gifting us with your amazing time. And we will, as I said, I'll let everybody know. I'll talk to Lyndall off camera and what day next week we're going to do this, or if it'll be the week after. Usually it'll be this Thursday time slot at 11. But yeah, I have a school appointment. Sorry. And yeah, and make sure that you share this video with everybody that you think could use this information. Any questions for next week with the diet, please put them in the Facebook group, or come on live and have a look. And again, thank you heaps, Lyndall, and everybody. I love you lots, and I will see you again very, very soon. Bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye.